Well, hello. My name is Scott Miller, and I was born in Philip, South Dakota. It's a little cow town way out west. I think about the age of 3, my parents finally realized that I had hearing loss or that I was deaf. And about that time, my father was appointed as a circuit judge. And so he moved to Pierre, and they tried to send me to a nursery school in the area. And that's when the parents realized that I just wasn't, socializing as I should with all the other kids. I was kind of off on my own, and they realized something was wrong. So they decided to send me to the South Dakota School for the Deaf. And I remember it was the spring of 1973. And I was terrified, scared, and I met some other friends. And today, many of these people are still my friends. And we toured the campus, and later that fall, this would have been, 1973, the fall of 73. And so that's when I actually started preschool program, Preschool 1, under Mrs. Ellefson at the time. And at that same year, it was the first time that I experienced, all by myself, taking commuter flights back and forth. I was used to riding big planes, and it ended up that I have this fascination with airlines and planes and flight, and I just love Western Airlines. That's one of my favorites. And when I was growing up, I lived in Primary Hall, which today they call it the Buckmaster Building, and lots of memories in that particular place. Backing up a little bit, my family are all hearing. I'm the only one in my family who's deaf. And so I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers. And when I was growing up, I spent my entire childhood, my education, until I graduated in 1987 here at South Dakota School for the Deaf. After that, I went to Gallaudet University and graduated from there in 1994. Came back to South Dakota and lived in Pierre for a while. I worked for the Department of Transportation as a construction technician, focusing on bridge designs and the road department there. I did that for about 3 years, and then I received a job offer from the deaf school as a residential hall team leader. And so I relocated to Sioux Falls and worked with a number of kids, did that for about 1.5 years, and I met my wife there, and I followed her to Minneapolis. We were there for about 2.5 years. Obviously, I'm too much of a South Dakota boy, so I miss South Dakota, and we decided to come back, and I got an offer from CSD, for Communication Service for the Deaf, and became their facility manager. I had a number of different responsibilities: project management, maintenance department, warehouse manager. Involved with security management for a while. I just did all of that together, and did that for a total of about 12 years until that was done when CSD relocated to another place. And now I'm enjoying what I'm considering a very, very early retirement. So getting back to my days here at the School for the Deaf, I went through just a number of really good experiences, and of course I had some challenging experiences as well. Always loved coming back to the School for the Deaf, because in the summertime I was the only one in Pierre, and when I knew fall was coming and school was coming, I was so excited to be back with my friends and be back with my group and all the people I could communicate with and use my own, what I considered my native language with. I just loved that. So I stayed in the Buckmaster Building. They actually, not only was that the primary hall where we slept, but we actually had classrooms there. And so I stayed there until 3rd grade. Then we moved to the old school building, did that for about 1 year before they finally built this building. So I saw this building actually be constructed when it was first built back in the 70s. But I still prefer the old school in many ways, because there were so many good memories in that school. I can tell you so many stories about things that happened in that building, the old school, until they shut it down, and I still have an attachment or an affinity for that building. It's just a lot of memories. I can tell you one funny story, and there's a number of them, but one of them is a time at the old school where it was a Friday and we had very cold weather, and I was in the bathroom. My friend came in and opened up the window to see if the toilet paper would float. And so we'd throw sheets of toilet paper out the window and just watch them float in the air because it was so windy. Then the next day we left, and they said the next day that they had to close the bathrooms because somebody opened up the windows and never shut them, and it froze the pipes and everything was ruined. And I thought, oh, that was us. We did that. And so that was one of my last memories of the last days of the bathroom at the old school. But after they closed that building, it was a couple of years later where we had a Halloween carnival, a haunted house at the old school, and we thought, oh, this is great, because it had been closed down for a couple of years. And so we got to get in there, and we decorated the place up for Halloween. And I have to say that was one of the best carnivals we ever had, probably anywhere that I've ever been to. Our School for the Deaf carnival, our haunted house there, was great. Everyone just enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun doing that project. When CSD took over the campus, I would still go into that building, and every time I entered it, I just had all these memories that would flood back to me. And when the School for the Deaf had control over that portion of the campus, they didn't take a lot of good control or good care of the building. And I mean, it got to the point where the walls would creak and shake every time you walked down the hall. And when CSD took over, they converted everything into apartments over there for a while. And I never really considered it an apartment complex because it was still my old school. I considered it my school. Back when I was a young child, I think one of my favorite memories was field trips and going on these bus rides and having picnics and going to places like the airport where the teachers would walk us through things and they would explain what would happen, and just like a normal field trip would be. And the airport was so fun. We went to a funeral home one time, and I remember that one very vividly. I was in the 5th grade, and I remember going through the funeral home to see how it worked and what was involved. I didn't have a negative experience. It was all a positive educational experience. In high school, I was very busy with sports. I was involved with basketball and cross country and track. We had a number of things, and some of the best parts were going to compete against other deaf schools and making friends with students who went to other state schools for the deaf, and that was nice. So then when I went to Gallaudet, I remembered some of the connections that I made from some of these athletic events, and we had friendships that were formed that way. And even today, when there's a big major event like the Midwest Association of the Deaf, where we have softball tournaments and so forth, we still associate with each other, and we have memories all the way back from when we were young in school at the deaf schools. A lot of good growing experiences, and at the School for the Deaf, I know all of us had duties and responsibilities, things that we had to do. In fact, back in the day, we were forced to snow. When it snowed, they took all the high school boys, and we had to shovel the campus. The maintenance department only did the streets or the roads through the campus. We had to do all the sidewalks. But I still have so much to thank the school for in teaching us the responsibility, and we had assignments given to us every week. One of the things I had to do was vacuum the whole dorm for 1 week, and then the next week I would be assigned to laundry. We'd have to go to each one of the dorm rooms and pick up all the dirty laundry and bring it in for washing, and then when it was all done and clean, we'd have to deliver it back to the right rooms. And the next week I would have to clean the bathrooms. Now that wasn't a fun job, but that was one of our duties. But again, I'm thankful for the school for teaching me those kinds of responsibilities, because that was important in the future. What else can I say? I guess I can't really think of anything. I remember there was, and I think it was my junior year, it was the last day of school, and we went to Newton Hills. We all got together and we had this camp out, and we spent the night there, and we were just had all sorts of fun. We were mischievous and we were scaring people and doing things to other people's tents, and then we'd watch the sky and look at the stars, and then some of the other kids, would pick on the other kids in the other tents, and it was just a lot of fun. Good camping experience. And now that I mention that kind of brings back some other memories. There was a tradition, usually on the last day of school, we would try to take our dorm supervisors and throw them in the showers and get them all wet. And that was kind of a tradition that we always did. That was a fun memory too. What else can I say? Ever since I very first came, when I first came or was enrolled here at the school, I lived in the dorms until my senior year. My parents, of course, stayed in Pierre, and so that's where I had to stay. And we commuted back and forth. When I was young, it was just about every week or every other week. And as I was older, I got a little bit more independent, and I would love to go to Pierre in the fall, especially because of hunting. But in the spring, I would decide to only go maybe once a month back to Pierre. And so living in the dorms, I have to say, is some of my best experiences, because that's where we really bonded. It felt like a family. We all grew up together and stayed together. And